Hey guys, what is up? It is the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys another vlog. So, last night was a very interesting game for the Indiana Pacers playing against the Atlanta Hawks. They finally looked like a basketball team. I mean, they had 50 fucking assists last night, which is unheard of. Tyrese Haliburton had 18 assists. Miles Turner had 27 points. And I saw a lot of good things in this game. If you're in the Discord server or whatever, we were pretty much all just talking throughout the game. And I saw some things that I really liked. For once, Miles Turner is doing something other than shooting threes and blocking shots. Last night, it was he was hitting mid-range jumpers. There was a couple times he even went into like a post-up move and at least tried a fucking post-up move. So that left something that I was like, wow, I'm like, when Miles is actually like confident and gets going, he tries different things, which was nice. Jalen Smith, I thought, had a nice game. It just all around was a good all around team performance. And, we finally got a chance to see what this team looks like when it's really actually clicking on all cylinders. And after last night's win, we are now 4th in the Eastern Conference. And there's been a lot of talk about trading for Pascal Siakam, trading for Mikal Bridges, trading for Lauri Markkanen. And unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get any of those guys, simply because I feel like, a lot of the guys we have that are like, I would say salary filler contracts, guys like, Buddy Hield, Bruce Brown, Miles Turner at this point, I'm starting to have a little bit of a change of heart on because, if Miles isn't going to rebound, you at least got to outscore your fucking opponent. And that's what he did last night. I mean, he had 27 and 5, but, with Miles for a long time, it really bothered me that it's like, he doesn't score a lot, nor does he rebound a lot, and more often than not, he gets outplayed by the other team's center. So if Miles can at least outscore the other team's guy, at least he's doing that. You know what I'm saying? At that point, I don't care so much about the rebounds. I just care about you scoring enough to make up for what you don't do on the defensive end with rebounding or on the offensive end with rebounding. But last night was a very good showing. Everybody had it clicking. Aaron Nesmith, unfortunately, I think has a high ankle sprain or a calf strain or something like that. He went out, I think, in the third quarter with an injury. But now the questions everybody's asking is like, are the Pacers going to make a trade? And honestly, the Sacramento Kings, who were supposed to be really involved in a Pascal Siakam trade yesterday, Shams put out something on Twitter like 3 hours before the game started saying that like the Sacramento Kings are really ramping up trade talks for Pascal Siakam. And then at like 3 hours after the game, they were like, yeah, the Sacramento Kings have withdrawn all interest in Pascal Siakam. And it was probably because either Pascal Siakam isn't going to resign there, or they were asking for Keegan Murray. The Toronto Raptors probably asked for Keegan Murray, and the Sacramento Kings said, please fuck off. That's probably what happened. Because like Pascal Siakam, as much as I think he'd be a great fit next to a guy like Tyrese Haliburton, I worry about him re-signing with the team. Like, that's the one thing I worry about most is Pascal Siakam seems like he's stubborn in where he wants to be. He wants to be in Toronto. Toronto's not going to pay him. So, like I don't know if Pascal Siakam even has a list of preferred destinations. Like, we haven't even heard about that. At least with a guy like DeMar DeRozan, we've heard. He wants to go to the Knicks or to the Miami Heat. And being that the Knicks just traded for OG Anunoby, it seems like the Knicks are off the list. And even after Kyle Lowry's contract expires at the end of the season, the Miami Heat are not going to have enough cap space to bring back DeMar DeRozan unless, he takes significantly less money than he's worth to actually go there. I understand DeMar DeRozan is 34, but he's still playing at a very high level. He has played, I think, every fucking game this year for the Chicago Bulls, and he's playing very well. With this being said, now that the Indiana Pacers are 4th in the East, there's only 2 guys left to really go after that I think the Pacers have a legitimate shot at getting, and one of them is not even a guy that I think they really have a huge shot at, and those 2 guys are Tobias Harris and DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan is still averaging 22 points a game. He's been playing a lot. He's a guy that's shooting 35% from 3 this year. I think he's shooting like 46% from the field. He's averaging a steal a game, of 0.7 blocks per game. DeMar DeRozan is still a very good basketball player, okay? And he's a guy that I feel like if we offered the Chicago Bulls like our late first round pick that's via OKC, so it's essentially a second round pick. It's just a very good second round pick. Bruce Brown, that pick, and Jordan Nwora, I think we could land DeMar DeRozan. And then if you look at a team like Philadelphia, who has Tobias Harris, who's on an expiring deal, you could maybe offer them Buddy Hield and Bruce Brown just straight up and get Tobias Harris because he's on an expiring deal. But the Philadelphia 76ers are playing so well that they might bring back Tobias Harris and give him a contract extension. I'm not sure. But part of me feels like a lot of these teams, like if they were going to bring back some of these guys, the contract extensions would be done already. DeMar DeRozan's a guy who clearly doesn't want to be in Chicago anymore. And I feel like in a way, like DeMar DeRozan wants to win, and I feel like we give him the best opportunity to do that, or one of the best opportunities to do that. I don't think the Knicks are going to be good enough, especially after they just traded for OG Anunoby. It seems like they had zero interest in DeMar DeRozan. And I can't say that I don't think Miami is going to, pounce on it either. Miami still has Jimmy Butler. They still have Bam Adebayo. They still have Tyler Hero, and they still have Duncan Robinson locked in for 3 years. They do not have a lot of cap space to bring back a guy like DeMar DeRozan in free agency unless he comes back for pennies on the dollar. DeMar DeRozan is still very good, and on top of that, he's not going to have as big of a role with that team. DeMar DeRozan would arguably probably be a fucking bench player for them, and Tyler Hero's been playing so well this year when he has played that I find it hard to believe they're going to relegate him to the bench to bring in DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan would probably be like a sixth man for the Miami Heat, if I'm being honest with you. Whereas at least if he came and played for the Indiana Pacers, he's still a solid defender. He's only making $28 million this year. He's a guy that you have, I think, a solid shot at getting, and it gives Tyrese Haliburton at least a legitimate number two. We've seen it from DeMar DeRozan in the past couple years where he can make shots in the clutch. He's going to get you 20 a game if you make him a starter. The mid-range jumper's still good. The three-point shot is like 36%, which isn't horrible. But he's been a guy that has been playing it out all year with the Chicago Bulls, and the Chicago Bulls getting Jordan Nwora, getting that late first-round pick, getting a guy like Bruce Brown, I think is something that they would be interested in. Bruce Brown is a guy they can maybe flip next year into somebody, or if they're just looking to get Jordan Nwora and a first-round pick, I don't see the Pacers giving up Bruce. DeMar DeRozan's so old at this point. He's 34. I just don't see the Pacers giving up Benedict Mathurin or Jarris Walker or somebody like that to get DeMar DeRozan, or even Jalen Smith, because Jalen Smith has been playing very well. The Chicago Bulls are going to have to come to the realization that they're going to have to be a rebuilding team, not a retooling team. Kobe White's been very good for them, but I still think they would like a guy like Bruce Brown who's younger. Alex Caruso's a guy they're probably going to get off of. I wouldn't even be surprised if they get off of Nikola Vucevic, because, if they're shopping Zach LaVine, then they understand that they need to put something out there that they can build towards. And Jordan Nwora really hasn't been getting a lot of play for us. He's been a nice player at times for us, but he's a guy who really he's a part of the third unit. He's not going to be a starter for us. If you send him to Chicago, he's probably going to get more minutes, maybe some bench minutes. And Bruce Brown being 27 at least gives them a trade chip into next year. They get a point guard who, I get it, Kobe White's been playing very well, but Bruce Brown at least has championship experience. He's a guy that you could bring in just as a vet and, maybe teach the young guys how to be winners. But I'm at a point, man, where it's I think the Pacers need to strike on this while it's hot. And being that Buddy Hield and Bruce Brown are both two guys that are probably not coming back, I feel like those are guys that we could maybe not only trade for, but bring back in the future. DeMar DeRozan's not done. I'm just going to call it what it is. I know people look at his age and they're like, oh, he's 34 or whatever, but DeMar DeRozan still has something left in the tank. And, Jordan Nwora is a guy that we're not going to develop. And Bruce Brown's a guy that if we bring him back anyway, in the offseason with that team option, we still can't. If we bring him back, we can't re-sign anybody. So, and the same thing goes for Buddy Hield. I'm starting to think maybe Buddy Hield doesn't get traded. I'm starting to think maybe Buddy Hield stays on the team and the Pacers don't renounce their rights to him. And if Buddy Hield goes into free agency and finally realizes like the trade market is not what he thought it was, maybe we could bring him back. But the thing is, if you're the Pacers, do you take that risk? Do you take the risk of, entering free agency and somebody potentially outbidding you for a guy that you maybe could have traded? But at the same time, it doesn't seem like a lot of teams in the NBA are super interested in Buddy Hield. The only teams that I think that would be are a team like Oklahoma City, a team like the 76ers, a team like the Lakers, teams that could use more shooting. A team like the Memphis Grizzlies, even though they're at the bottom of the Western Conference, they're not a team that I think he would even go back to. So there's a lot of limited options out there for Buddy Hield, and I'm thinking to myself, if they could find some way to retain Buddy Hield, like everybody keeps saying we need to re-sign Buddy Hield, we need to re-sign Buddy Hield, we need to re-sign Buddy Hield. I get it, but at the same time, like, this is a guy who said 4 years, $90 million from the Sacramento Kings was an insulting offer. Okay, and not for nothing, but the Pacers are not going to give Buddy Hield a max contract for a guy who only shoots three-pointers. It's not going to happen. They're not going to pay him Jalen Brunson money to be a guy who goes out there and sucks ass on defense and just shoots threes. Okay, like, yes, he's a good three-point shooter, but that's the only thing he's good at. He is not good at a lot of other shit. He's not really good at putting the ball on the floor. He's not a good defender, not really a great passer. There are sometimes he gets to the basket and sometimes makes something happen, but a lot of the time he's just running down the floor and shooting threes in transition, and nobody in the league is going to pay Buddy Hield $100 million plus to come out here and just shoot threes. It's not going to happen. So The Pacers are in between a bit of a rock and a hard place with Buddy Hield. But if they can trade Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora, and that late first-round pick we have, which is essentially going to be a second-round pick if OKC keeps playing the way that they are, for DeMar DeRozan, DeMar DeRozan's a nice guy to put next to Tyrese Haliburton. And then, also he's kind of a good defender. I know Aaron Nesmith has been starting recently, but you can still run a defensive lineup with Nesmith in it. It's just the idea, like, the Pacers need to find themselves another guy. And if it's not going to be DeMar DeRozan, Tobias Harris is less likely, but Tobias Harris has also been playing very well this year. Tobias Harris is 6'8". He's really good at scoring the basketball. Maybe not as much of a defender as DeMar DeRozan is, but he's 6'8". And I guarantee you in the offseason, Tobias Harris is a guy you could bring back for less money. Nobody's going to pay him $40 million a year to score 17 points a game. It's just not going to happen. But he's a guy you could maybe put on like a Miles Turner deal. A guy that, you bring him back for 4 years, $80 million. You know what I'm saying? Or something like that where you're paying him, $20 million a year or something in that ballpark. You know what I'm saying? He's just a guy that I think, like, if you were going to pay him $20 million, he's maybe worth that. 4 years, $80 million for Tobias Harris doesn't seem like a horrible deal, and he's a guy that on a good night can go out and get you 20, 25. And on his worst day, he's going to score, 17 points a game for you. He's averaging 17 a game now, so maybe he gets you 13 or 15. But Tobias Harris has a little bit of an inside game. He's an okay defender. He's not great. But he's also a lot younger than DeMar DeRozan too. I think that's important to point out. So unfortunately, we're getting late in the hour here with trades and stuff like that. We're not in February yet, but it's quickly approaching. All-Star voting is starting to pop off, and I feel like if the Pacers are going to strike while the iron's hot on this, they need to trade Buddy or Bruce Brown for somebody. I don't know who the fuck somebody is, but Pascal Siakam seems like a guy that is just not going to come. I don't think we're going to get Pascal Siakam. I don't think he's a guy we're going to be able to re-sign. Gary Trent Jr. is maybe an interesting option from the Toronto Raptors, but the Pacers are very good. And last night we saw what they can be when all cylinders are clicking, but January is a tough month. In fact, if the Pacers were going to make a trade, I have a feeling it would be this month. Because this is the toughest part of the schedule. They need to implement somebody that is going to be Tyrese Haliburton's number 2. I mean, let's be honest. We need somebody who's going to do that. Maybe somebody who's going to rebound. That's why I like DeMar DeRozan so much, is DeMar DeRozan does just a little bit of everything. He's not a guy that's going to kill you in one category, right? Like he's not an amazing rebounder. He's not an amazing defender. He's not an amazing three-point shooter, but he can do a lot of that stuff on a decent level. You know what I'm saying? He's not Buddy Hield from 3. He's not Miles on defense. He's not Andre Drummond at rebounding, but he's a guy that can do a little bit of everything, and we've seen in clutch moments before in the past couple of years that he's capable of hitting late-game jumpers to win games. And I feel like DeMar DeRozan would be a nice addition, considering once we get into free agency, I'm now, like, when it comes to Paul George, Kawhi Leonard and James Harden and guys like that, I feel like they're going to go back to their respective teams, just because I don't think Paul George or Kawhi Leonard's ever going to make $47 million in one season ever again in their careers. So I have a feeling they go back. I have a feeling James Harden goes back to the Clippers. But it's at a point now where it's like LeBron's probably going to go wherever Bronny goes. Anthony Davis is not going to be out there. He signed a contract extension a while ago. So really, even free agency, a lot of the guys that we were eyeballing in free agency are not even going to be out there in free agency. And you can offer Pascal Siakam all the money you want. If he doesn't want to play in Indiana, he's not going to play in Indiana. So I don't know, man. It just, for me, it's like it's getting to a point now where it's like even Lauri Markkanen and Mikal Bridges are guys that teams like Utah and Brooklyn are going to want Benedict Mathurin, or they're going to want Jarris Walker or Jalen Smith or somebody like that to land a guy like that. Jalen Smith and Jarris Walker maybe is not so much of a risk, but Benedict Mathurin's a guy who actually is starting to look pretty good. So yeah, last night's game was entertaining to watch, but it's just, we're at a point now where it's like the trade market is shrinking very quickly. And the guys that are out there, the guys that are available are shrinking very quickly. Teams are finally establishing like what they want for the guys that they're going to get rid of. And really the only 2 guys that I just think are left are Tobias Harris and DeMar DeRozan. And I understand it sucks. You're not getting the Hall chocolate bar, but you're getting a Hershey's Kiss, as they say in The Longest Yard. And I think adding a guy like DeMar DeRozan, even just adding a guy like Tobias Harris, could be a big opportunity for this team. The other thing also is everybody's saying we should trade for Jeremy Grant. And Jeremy Grant plays for Portland, but he's massively overpaid. You know what I'm saying? Why go after Jeremy Grant when you can go after Tobias Harris, who's significantly cheaper and is almost essentially the same fucking player? You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, Jeremy Grant's better defensively, but, he's a guy that's going to be making $30 million a year plus in the next 4 or 5 years on his deal, because he signed such a lucrative deal with the Portland Trailblazers. Do we want to do that and chew up all our cap space for a guy who's not an all-star? No, probably not. Whereas if Tobias Harris, I think 4 years, $80 million is in the ballpark of what Tobias Harris is worth. So really, and the same thing also, same thing goes for DeMar DeRozan. He's a guy that you could probably bring back a lot cheaper than you could pay a guy like Jeremy Grant over the next 4 or 5 years. I'm telling you right now, DeMar DeRozan's not getting $30 million a year ever in his career. Not with his age. He's 34. He's a guy, maybe you get him, 2 years, $25 million in that ballpark. 2 years, $50 million. But as far as paying him $30 million a year plus to be whatever he's gonna be, maybe a desperate team would do it. But I don't think the Pacers are a desperation team, and if DeMar DeRozan really wants to win a ring, I think we're one of the few teams that can provide that outside of the teams that he wanted to go to. He wanted to go to the Knicks. The Knicks aren't going to bring him back. The Knicks are not signing him. They have OG Anunoby now that they have to re-sign, who OG Anunoby has more youth, and I think honestly OG Anunoby has the potential to maybe be a better player. He's only 26. So yeah, the Knicks aren't going to be going after DeMar DeRozan, and the Heat just have too much cap space chewed up in other guys to really offer DeMar DeRozan a contract he would maybe want to go there. But you never know. He could do some shit like go there on a vet minimum deal to Miami, but I just think like we would be a nice spot for DeMar DeRozan. So tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. Helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more on the Fast Break Report. And I'm out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.